We're rolling. Hey, everyone. This is Katee Sackhoff, and this is Blah, Blah, Blah with myself and my lovely host of the Hindsight episodes, Kristian Harloff.
I like being lovely. That works.
It works.
Am I lovely?
You are lovely.
That's
I mean,
very nice of you.
listen,
I appreciate
lovely
it.
enough. If I squint.
See, lovely enough is a better intro. Let's try it again. Back to one.
Okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Blah, Blah, Blah. I am Katee Sackhoff, your host, and I am joined by my co-host, the lovely enough Kristian Harloff.
Much better. That is way more accurate and on brand.
Oh, wait, I forgot.
Yes.
You guys, like and subscribe if you're listening on wherever you get your podcast. Like and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. Hit whatever button you need to hit. Just make sure you're make sure you're not driving your car when you do it. There's links everywhere. Just like, subscribe, and stay in this community. I love it.
Right.
So, Hindsight, Michael Rosenbaum.
Look, this was an episode that I was really looking forward to because as someone who's been in the podcast game for a while, watching what Michael has done with his podcast has been really, really interesting. It's been inspiring. And when you look at the conversation you guys had, you understand why, right? And even off camera, you can see he's like, he's on, right? He's on. But as you were talking to him, you really get why he's on.
Yeah, you do. And I've known Rosie a long time. He literally, the first job I ever booked in my entire life in Los Angeles was to play someone he was dating on a show called Zoe, Duncan, Jack, and Jane. And so I've known Rosie since I was 18 years old, a long time. And we've been friends that entire time. And I've known certain things about him, but when you've been friends with someone for that long and you're interviewing them, this isn't the gotcha show. We've talked about that a lot. Right. Like, I don't want to put my friends in a position where they're like, fuck you, Katee. Why'd you ask me that question? But at the same time, I wanted to know more about Rosie. I wanted to know things that I didn't know. I wanted to know more about who he was as a kid and his home life. And, he really opened up, which was beautiful. And I love that about him. Michael is on his show is always open and honest. So it didn't surprise me. But right when I started to get into that line of questioning, his response was, "Oh, we're going to go there, Sackhoff." Yeah. And I was like, "Oh, shit. All right." Yeah. He could have in that moment been like, "Not today."
Nah, he's been doing this too long now, though. He doesn't, he gets it. He gets it. Like, he even said it at one point. It's like, this is going to give you a good soundbite because he understands. He's thinking that way now because that's what he does for his show. Yeah. He knows the line of questioning of which way to go. He knows what you've got to do as far as, and he said it afterwards. He was very complimentary to you as far as you're good at this, and you have that conversation. That's what he said. He said the same thing we've always been saying. It's not an interview. It's a conversation, and that's what the best podcasts are conversations when you're listening. And he has really done that very well. And he's been able to use the fame that he's gotten out of the Smallville show. He's been able to use that to have the conversations, his love for movies and everything too. And now he's like he's one of the, we used him as an example when we were starting this, saying that there are not a lot of people in this space, in your space, doing what you're doing, except Rosenbaum
Rosie.
and John Bernthal. Those are our two examples that we're using, and it was great to have him on.
Yeah, no, for sure, and that is the other. Rosie's been doing this, as long as I have been aware of podcasts. As an actor that's still working, he was one of the first people that was doing both, and I love that we talked about the fact that it was he hasn't worked a lot lately and by choice. Yeah. And then we talked about what he likes more, because we've talked about that with me. Yeah. Like, what if I like this more and I don't want to act anymore? Yeah. Like, that's a fear, it is a fear.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, but it's like, but as you said, it was one of the reasons that you kind of took this leap in the first place is because you said you had the instinct, and your instinct was right, that you could be good at this and that you could have conversations with people and that people would want to hear the conversations, right? And so as more people listen to the show and more people commenting on the show and more people give you an insight of kind of like what they want to see and what you want to talk about, I think that that's also what Michael does very well, right? He listens to his audience. He has a lot of his friends on. That's what he does. And like you've got your friends on, you've had people outside we had never met before. And I think that it's interesting to see the similarities, yet the extreme differences in the way that you both do this.
Yeah. You know, what's funny is that I think that a lot of people, when I talked about the guests that we've had and how there's really no, for the most part, there is no, they're not all actors. I've always wanted that. There are a lot of people that are in the podcast game that are like, what do you do in Sackhoff? That's not how you do a podcast. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, it's sort of what I want to do. I wanted to do something different. And, you know, whether it continues this way or morphs and becomes something different, so what? Like, we're just playing and having fun and having great conversations on the way. You know?
And it's also the fact that we did a lot of these episodes, and I'm sure we've talked about it, and if we didn't, we shot a lot of these before we could even release any of them. And the idea that we were able to get people on that wanted to talk to you and that, like you said, someone like Rosie you've just been friends with and wants to support, but you guys talked about that story. He thought you were going on his show first.
He did. So I had originally pitched Rosie the show and he said, whatever you need.
Right.
He was just 100% like, whatever you need. So I'm like, okay, great. And so then I reached out to him. I'd seen him at a convention, and then I reached out to him after, like the next day, and said, basically, I was telling him, you know, can we get you on the show? Or can we do the show?
Yeah.
And his response, we basically went back and forth in text messages for like 10 minutes. And then, so I book him on the show. We book the space at the studio. And then I get a text message from him going like, oh shit, you're coming on my show, right? And I was like, no, Rosie, you're coming on my show. And he was like, oh shit, I might need to move stuff around. And so it was really funny. And so I ended up going to his show right afterwards to be like, well, you come do mine and I'll go do yours. Right. We'll do it that way again. So we can both have an interview. And it was quite funny. Just the
back and forth. I loved the trade-off that you guys both had. Plus the fact you can tell that you guys could talk about so much. And like he talked about, and it went from a lot of personal stuff. And he talked about the Lex Luthor stuff. He talked about the James Gunn stuff. My favorite part of the episode actually was his story about Comic-Con and meeting that couple and finding out that the woman was diagnosed, and then him telling, you better make sure you give me updates. You really got a glimpse of who he was as a person inside of that too, because he's a showman. He's like, if I didn't know him, I don't know him, but like you could tell, like, okay, this is a guy who's popular actor. Yeah. He's on. He wants to show you that he's on, and he's a funny dude.
Always funny.
And he's on. But then when you listen to him, you're like, that's a good dude. Like, that's a good dude. You
know, I pride myself in the sense that I don't think I have any friends that aren't good people. Yeah. To be honest, like you sort of weed them out as you get older.
Get out, Brett.
Bye, Brett. Yeah. But he's right in that, you know, the more you spend time at conventions, and the more you interact with fans, and the more I get to know you guys personally and see you out, you can absolutely 100% tell the difference between somebody who's there to get your autograph, who is a collector, who wants to meet you but doesn't need more time. They're just like, I want to meet you. This is great. And then they move on. You can tell the people who need time or that just need something. And you have to stop for those people.
Sure.
You have to slow the line down for those people. You have to pause and acknowledge that person, not more than the other people, but there are people at certain times in their life that need to be seen more.
Sure.
And those people need that acknowledgement. And it doesn't surprise me that Rosie has been that person that did that.
I loved it. I absolutely love that. I can tell the connection that he had in general with it. And I think that's also why he's another one. Like he's, again, the inspiration as far as like we talked about the back and forth on like the Patreon. And he does how interactive he is on his Patreon to talk to his particular followers, fans, or just listeners rather. And like that was a great insight to see him. But then, as you said in the beginning of this, how open he was about he doesn't have a great relationship with his family, and how you could tell it was like he's pretty like lonely, like a lot of the times when he was kind of growing up, and he talked about that, and then that kind of I think led into the idea that he's never been married, right? He's never. He likes, and when you get older, it's harder because you really fall into. I like where my life is.
Like I am who I am. You're either going to come in or you're not going to stay.
Right. You're like, you're not going to form, like when you're, because he said, I think, in case he didn't, I don't know, but he talked about how old he is or where he is in his life. And like, you're at that point in your life, especially successful with his show and everything too. You look at his studio, his man cave. He loves it. He likes to go with hang out with his friends. It's going to be hard to crack that, but he said it himself. You never know. Someone comes in and he goes, all right, I'll change it.
Well, that's the difference between dating people and finding the right person. The right person will fold into his life, and it won't feel like they're abandoning their life.
Right. Or he might fold into their life.
You never know. Fold into theirs.
Yeah, you never know.
That's sort of the thing that, when I was younger, I was 25 when I started dating someone who was 40. He was very honest. We were together for a very long time, but he literally said to me, I am pretty stuck in my ways. I'm not really going to change who I am as a person at this point.
Right.
And, if you give people the room, they will tell you who they are. They will tell you the reasons you end up leaving them, to be honest. But
it was in the fine print.
It was in the fine print. Yeah. I told you up front, but it's the truth. You get to a certain age, like I am at my, at this point where I don't bend for a lot of people. It shocked me when I bent for my husband. I bent so much for him, but he also did for me more so, and entered my life more than.
But that goes back to what you were saying. Yeah. That's the right person. Yeah. That's the right relationship. Yeah. So when that comes along, and right now, that's not where Rosie is. He's just like, his right relationship is his life the way it is. Yeah. And his podcast and his friends and his things. And he digs that, and he's happy that way. And you can hear about when he talks about it. Like he never once said inside of this, like, I don't know. I strive for that. Yeah. He doesn't. No. He still strives for, like, I think that when it comes to like the acceptance from his family and those things. So too, even though it's kind of, I think there was a little bit of like a shield up there, like a protection thing, but that's hard not to be when you've been going through that for that long.
It's hard to openly talk about our insecurities that we've had with us from childhood. Yep. Those are the hardest ones to talk about because those are the ones that formed us that are still there. They say that the first 7 years of a child's life forms who they're going to be as an adult and who their perception of themselves as an adult.
So my daughter's essentially Joe Pesci from Goodfellas.
She is.
Right.
Yeah, she's going to smack you with her mitts.
Kneecaps.
Yeah. But that's the truth. So if you have that trauma from that early age, it's really hard to move past it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm not saying that Michael has trauma. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just talking in general about trauma.
But there's different levels of trauma. Yeah. There's different levels of things. Like when my heart kind of broke for him when he was telling those stories. Yeah. So the way, like, even that his
mother shouldn't have had children.
Yeah, like all that, and the fact that he said, even when he said the thing that his brother said, that's like, Michael's kind of ignored, or no one pays attention to Michael. And he's like, it's true. And you understand, like a lot of times, like even coming from the stand-up comedy background, of why you get into things and certain things of why you're want to be on a stage in front of a bunch of people, because there's something there. There's a reason why. Of things that happened to you in your childhood and other things too. And then same thing with actors. There's a reason why you want the attention on you, but you have a gift. You want to be able to show that gift out, and that's when you feel the most appreciated. And I think that's the case with him. And he certainly has taken that into the next level with his podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think it's the case with so many people. It's what we've talked about a little bit before, and in that, that we've talked about this in regards to myself, and that, I've gotten to a certain point in my career, and now my personal life has become the thing I want to focus on. Yeah. And I don't need that external gratification and validation anymore, because I have it on a daily basis from the people that love me in my family. Yeah. So it becomes this thing, like, where if you are in need of validation, you get up on stage. I go to a comic book store. Things
right. But you've also accomplished. You've also been able. You've been because of the hard work and because of what you've also accomplished. So you've scratched a lot of the itches that you were hoping to scratch.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's things that you still want to do, but like you said, that has been overshadowed by the love of your husband, the love of your daughter, the love so like that is there. And those are certain things. And that's not necessarily those particular circumstances from Michael, but he's got other things there too. But I told you afterwards, I said, that was a phenomenal conversation.
Yeah.
It was a really great conversation
Yeah.
because he went into a lot of different things, but I think it's because he does this.
He knows how to be.
He does. And
the interviewer.
and I was
interviewee.
worried. Yeah, that was the thing. I was worried about it up top. As I told you, I was like, and I have no problem saying this on air. I said, make sure that he doesn't lead the interview.
Yeah.
Not because he would be trying to overshadow you. He just does this.
That's what he does.
And it's just because I was on a show like 2 weeks ago. And in my nature, I started to like host in a certain, like, they even made a joke about it that I was just like, welcome back to the show. I was like, you're a guest, dummy. And it's like, it was the same thing where I'm like, is he going to do that? And he didn't. He was able to, there was a couple times where there was and I was actually really, I was like I gave like a fist, like, yeah, good for Katee. Because there was a couple times that he went to, and he started to go into a certain road, and I thought you were going to get sidetracked off your question, and you pushed it away and you said, nope, let's get to that. And you stayed in the pocket.
I think it's because you prepared me, and it was something I had in my mind ahead of time. But when you also pulled me aside right before and said, drive the interview, don't let him drive. And I was like, yeah. So I thought it was good. One of the things that upset me the most in that conversation was his treatment from Warner Brothers.
About how, that whole thing
That
with Peter
whole thing
Roth. Yeah.
With Peter Roth. Who I've had my own experiences with.
I worked for Peter Roth for about 4 months. He was he was very pleasant to me. So I don't have the same.
No, I've never had like a bad experience with Peter.
Yeah.
I just know a lot of people have.
Sure.
The fact that Warner Brothers would take someone who was arguably, and not to take anything away from anyone else on that show, because everyone on that show is amazing. And there's a reason the show was as successful as it was for as long as it was.
But he was a prominent figure.
He was a prominent figure of that show, and probably the most recognizable because of the hair.
Sure.
His character was so recognizable.
Yeah.
The fact that they renegotiated with him and renegotiated with the same fee is appalling to me.
Laughable.
It's so rude.
Yeah.
It is so rude and disrespectful from, this is one of the reasons the union's striking or, had struck is that there is this thing that actors, and these are all high class problems. I get that. But actors are very disrespected from studios. A lot of the times.
They look at them as a kind of dime a dozen. Somebody else can do your job. Yeah.
100% because somebody else can.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't appreciate and reward the person who has worked for you already for 7 years. They got the job for a reason. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's what I mean.
Sure.
Had you cast somebody else in that role from the beginning, sure. Yeah, someone else could do that job.
Right, but somebody else would be in the same position.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
So don't disrespect and take advantage of the people that have helped your studio, your business grow, that you hired in the first place because they were right for the jobs.
I thought he was going to say, and then they came back and it was like a 5 or 2% increase.
Yeah, I never dreamed.
No, he's like, and it was the same thing. I loved. As I gave you the fist bump, I gave him the fist bump when he said, "I told them, don't even respond. I don't even want to counter."
And that's one of the things. I think that's why that moment stuck out to me. Because we all want to think that we have the confidence in ourselves and our own abilities to, in moments like that, know our self-worth and walk away.
Yeah.
And walk away without needing to have the last word.
Right.
Just walk away.
Right.
That is something to be applauded in all areas of life. And because he knew his self-worth.
And mentally, he had prepared himself. He was over it already. He was over it. Like, it's a different thing if he would have been like, oh, I really want this to work. And then they came back and they're like, Same thing though, because then they would have been dangling. Like, but I want to go back to work. I want to go back and I want to do this. He was over it. It's like you're trying to negotiate with somebody and you're trying to get somebody back.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not how you do it.
No, but that is what business affairs and studios usually have over the artists, the actors, the writers, is that we want to work.
Right.
We're artists. I'm not an actor if I'm not acting.
Right. And they're like, this guy doesn't want to work.
Like exactly.
Right, yeah.
I have a hard time saying no because I want to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would love to get to a point where my power is in I don't need it.
Hey,
and
man.
I think I'm there.
So put that close up on me. Subscribe, hit the comments, like.
You guys. What he said.
But I, as I kid though, I will tell you though, like this is, I said to you after watching that interview, I'm like, I knew that we had something. How's you doing? How you doing? I knew that we had something before we even shot episode 1, but that really was like, okay, as we're shooting more of these episodes, like you're really vibing with this now. And I think that having someone like Michael on the show should really boost your confidence to show you, because afterwards he wasn't blowing smoke up your ass. He wasn't telling you like, oh, that was a good thing. Like, I know you could take that. He's my friend. He's going to say nice things. It doesn't seem like the type of person that would lead you on to say like, oh yeah, you should be doing this. Like he was like, yeah, you should be doing this. You're good at it. And he was very complimentary of the set afterwards. He was talking about how it looked and the sound and all that. So like if your confidence wasn't up after doing an interview with somebody who has really made it work, it should be.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. The only thing I'm thinking about right now, the only thing.
Bagels.
No.
Oh.
I had a bagel for breakfast, but no. Do you think that our viewership would go up if I grew out my nails and started tapping on microphones?
Who's doing that?
Every single Instagram person that does what is it called? Sponsorship. Yes. What is it with tapping shit? What is it with these long nails? Like tapping on stuff to show that like these are my spices in my drawer and these are my this and this is my this and like here we go, I'm gonna use this and I'm gonna use this and I'm gonna use this. You guys,
you probably just went up by 5,000 subscribers.
do you want to like and subscribe?
Yeah,
that's all I want to know.
That's it.
That's all I was thinking about.
I'm sure you were. I don't understand any of that. I go back to the old school kind of radio way and I go, that'll always work. Let's just talk for 4 hours. But I think with the right conversation, that does still work though too, because I don't think that long form is a forgotten thing. I think people love podcasts, and I think that people like the right people talking, and that's why I was glad to hear the two of you guys go, because I really wanted to hear his perspective on a lot of different things, and I loved where you went with him. I love where you tapped in. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, and then I got in his truck and we drove to his podcast.
Oh yeah, how did that go?
Because he has a Rivian.
Okay.
And never get in a car with Michael Rosenbaum.
Does he drive like a lunatic?
He drives like a lunatic.
It's like Lex Luthor driving around the town.
He drives like a lunatic.
Awesome.
And then it's an electric car, but a big electric car.
Okay.
So those things are so zippy.
Yeah.
And he's like, want to see how fast this goes? I was like, oh my God.
That's what I mean. I love how much.
I just blew out. Sorry.
It's all right. I love how much of a lunatic he is.
He's a lunatic.
I say that lovingly.
Me too.
Like when he was, because again, from being on the comedy circuit for so long, I've met some big personalities in this business. He's about as big as it comes.
Yeah.
But in a way where like you wonder, like I said, when you're like, is this going to be too much? And it really wasn't. It really wasn't, because you can tell like it's not just someone going, hey, look at me. It's like that's there. But it's also, there's something behind it. I thought that was
it's
great.
there, but there's a control.
Levels.
It's a controlled chaos.
Yeah.
And he is such a, like I said, we said this about Trisha. Anyone who can wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and be honest with themselves is a person that I want to have on. So he's one of those people, and it was a great interview. If you haven't listened to the Michael Rosenbaum interview, you absolutely should. Yep. He is so amazing, and he's got so many episodes on his podcast as well that, Inside
of You with Michael Rosenbaum. It's on his channel. You can find it there. You can also find that one on podcast. But our episode you can find on this YouTube channel or Apple Podcasts or Spotify, anywhere podcasts are.
Anywhere.
Yep.
Anywhere. We're all over the place
All
now.
over the place, man.
We're all over the place. So thanks for listening. That was wonderful. You guys, I'll see you. I'll see you on Tuesday. Have an amazing week. This has been the Blah, Blah, Blah podcast, Hindsight with Katee Sackhoff and Kristian Harloff. Have a great day.
With Katee Sackhoff.